Can you believe it? This princess, who simultaneously held the inheritance rights of both Spain and the Holy Roman Empire, was ultimately conspired against by her own father, husband, and son, and confined to a madhouse until her death. Later generations called her Joanna the Mad. Was she really insane? Of course she wasn't. But she had to pretend to be for the sake of power. This was a meticulously planned mental murder by her closest relatives using power and lies. The label of madness was permanently stuck on her. No one remembered that she was once a top student princess proficient in Latin and Greek, a devoted wife who guarded her husband's body for 3 years, the only legitimate queen in this power struggle. This 46-year imprisonment tore open the dirtiest fig leaf of medieval royalty. In the male-dominated game, a woman's emotions were original sins. A woman's ambition for power was a sign of madness. In 1479, Joanna was born into Spain's most glorious royal family. Her father was Ferdinand II of Aragon. Her mother was Isabella I of Castile. This royal couple had just completed the unification of Spain and was busy incorporating the New World discovered by Columbus into their territory. As their third child, Joanna received a standard education for an heir from a young age. She could write poetry in French, refute priests in debates, and even read ancient Greek philosophical manuscripts. But in her parents' eyes, this daughter's greatest value was for a political marriage. In 1496, 17-year-old Joanna was married to Philip, the son of Maximilian I, Holy Roman Emperor, an Austrian duke known as the Handsome. This marriage was supposed to be a powerful alliance between Spain and the Habsburg family, but it became the beginning of Joanna's nightmare. Beneath Philip's handsome exterior lay a promiscuous heart. Right after their honeymoon, he openly consorted with maids, and even brought his mistress to live in the palace while Joanna was pregnant. Joanna, who had been influenced by her parents' model marriage, at least on the surface, saw the hypocrisy of royal marriages for the first time. Her reactions were intense and direct. She cut off the maid's hair, publicly insulted Philip's mistress, and even argued with her husband at banquets. These emotional outbursts, which would be considered normal today, became evidence of madness at the time. Philip complained to his in-laws, saying Joanna was jealous like a raging lioness. Court chroniclers added fuel to the fire in their records, saying she woke up screaming in the middle of the night, suspecting someone was trying to poison her. No one cared that this princess, who had married far from home, was just defending her remaining dignity in a clumsy way. In 1504, Isabella I of Castile died, leaving a will that named Joanna as her successor to the Castilian throne, with Philip as her consort to assist. This was the closest Joanna ever got to power, and also the escalation of her tragedy. Her father Ferdinand II was unwilling to give up control over Castile, claiming his daughter was mentally incompetent and unable to govern, and that he would personally serve as regent. Her husband Philip, under the guise of protecting the queen, rallied nobles to pressure Joanna into signing away her power. Caught in the middle, Joanna showed her political acumen for the first time. She refused to sign any documents that undermined royal authority, secretly contacted her mother's former officials, and even delivered a speech in Parliament, elaborating on her legitimacy to rule in fluent Latin. But in a man's world, a woman's wisdom was a threat. Ferdinand and Philip temporarily set aside their disputes and jointly spread even more vicious rumors. They said Joanna suddenly undressed in the Parliament Hall, that she ordered maids to whip herself, that she needed to be fed like an idiot. In 1506, Philip suddenly died, leaving Joanna with a mess and 2 young children. This death became the first heavy blow that crushed her, and also an excuse for others to completely deny her. Grief-stricken Joanna made a shocking decision. She refused to bury Philip. Instead, she had his body treated with antiseptic spices by attendants, and placed in a carriage to tour Castile with her. For the next 3 years, this queen in mourning clothes handled government affairs during the day, and guarded her husband's coffin at night, sometimes talking to the corpse, sometimes bursting into tears. The public called her mad. The nobles took the opportunity to pledge loyalty to Ferdinand. Even her own sister Catherine wrote to her urging her to accept reality. Did she really couldn't let go of her husband? Actually, this was her last weapon against her father and the nobles. As long as Philip remained unburied, she was still the legitimate widow of the king consort, and Ferdinand couldn't legitimately take her throne. Ferdinand ultimately won. In 1509, he forcibly confined Joanna to the castle of Tordesillas, on the grounds of his daughter's deteriorating mental state. This gloomy fortress became her prison for the rest of her life. The windows were barred with iron. She was only accompanied by a few strictly monitored maids. Any letters attempting to contact the outside world were intercepted. More cruelly, Ferdinand ordered treatment for her madness. She was chained to her ankles with iron chains, fed sedative herbs when she became emotional, and had priests recite to her every day, "You're a madwoman unworthy of being queen." In the face of power, Ferdinand even wanted to eliminate this threatening daughter. In 1516, Ferdinand died. Joanna's son Charles V inherited the Spanish throne. Everyone assumed her own son would release his mother, but the 20-year-old Charles was even harsher than his grandfather. This young king from Flanders announced as soon as he arrived in Spain that his mother's madness had reached an advanced stage, not only continuing to imprison her, but also completely taking her crown for himself. To legitimize his rule, he fabricated even more absurd stories, saying Joanna had tried to poison her own children, that she ran naked through the castle, that she couldn't even remember her own name. These lies were written into Spanish official history, and some people still believe them today. But the historical records hide another truth. In 1520, a rebellion against Charles V broke out in Castile. The rebels stormed into the castle of Tordesillas, intending to restore Joanna to the throne. When they saw this queen who had been imprisoned for 11 years, they found that although she looked haggard, she asked calmly and rationally, "Do you have the support of Parliament? Do you have the loyalty of the army?" Her calmness and rationality stunned the rebels. In her final 30 years, Joanna lived in complete despair. Charles V only visited her 3 times, each time bringing doctors to evaluate her madness, and then taking away the income from her territories with a clear conscience. In 1555, 76-year-old Joanna died in the castle, with only an old maid by her side. Her will was simple: "Bury me with Philip. Don't put any titles on the coffin, just engrave Joanna." But even this wish, her son didn't fulfill. He buried her in the royal mausoleum in Granada, with the inscription on the tombstone reading, "Joanna the Mad, Queen of Castile," as if to forever nail her madness to history. Joanna's tragedy was never a personal mental issue, but a systematic suppression of female power by a patriarchal society. When she showed possessiveness toward her husband, she was called mad. When she insisted on her right to the throne, she was called mad. When she refused to compromise with her father and son, she was called mad. In that era, a woman had to be either a docile puppet or be destroyed with the label of Madwoman. Later historians discovered that Joanna's so-called madness was more likely severe depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. Her husband's betrayal, her father's imprisonment, her son's betrayal. Any ordinary person going through these might suffer a mental breakdown, but because she was a woman, and a woman eligible to inherit the throne, her pain was treated as a joke. Her resistance was treated as madness. Today, on the walls of the castle of Tordesillas, some faint scratches can still be seen. The tour guide will tell you these were made by Joanna the Mad with her fingernails. But if you look closely, you'll find those scratches are actually letters, spelling out "I'm not mad." These 3 words were the last cry of a queen betrayed by her closest relatives, left to the world. When we talk about Joanna the Mad, perhaps we should remember more that history is often written by the victors, and those women called mad women may have just been victims of power struggles.